All right guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to, again, another training session. We're in for pull today. So luckily enough, it's gonna bridge the gap between the last pull session and even better, there's a little bit of changes to the last pull session that you would have seen in the vlog. And before we actually get into today's video, I wanna say thank you very much to everyone who supported the first leg day video that me and Alex did, and obviously the vlog that recently went out, like the engagement, the comments, just the general support is actually like, yeah, kind of surprised me a little bit, especially like since I've been away from YouTube in a while. I almost forgot the community aspect and how amazing that is on YouTube. So thank you so much. So I'm 17 weeks out this weekend. Bodyweight this week has hit new lows of like 166. I was 166.2 this morning. Took shots yesterday, and I'm pretty sure like without a clouded vision, I'm pretty much in the same condition I was when I competed in 2020. Not in 2021. I've still got a little bit of way to go to match that, but I'm about the same condition I was in 2020 at 17 weeks out, which is cool. It's a really nice position to be in, especially I'm still strong. I've still got plenty of room to make adjustments, because I know I just want to bring another level of conditioning this time around. I really want to bring something where I know I could not have pulled off any more body fat. I want to be elite condition. That's a big goal of mine. I think you know, 2021 I was about as lean as I could be with the amount of muscle I had, but still not like deep cut glute striations on stage. I think I've got enough muscle to do that now, so that's the objective. So game on that front. Probably going to run some high days later this week, just because the rate of loss again was a little too fast, a little on the sort of higher end. I'm trying to lose at this point around about 0.75% of my current body weight. So this week has crept up a little higher than that, closer to like over 1%, which is just a little bit too much. So slow the pace down, try and control that rate of loss. That's going to help me preserve more performance on the gym floor, more muscle, etc., etc. We'll get into some talking points throughout the session. As always, I want to try and deliver some value and some key points, and I'll try and make them all a good bit different to the pull video that you've seen a couple of weeks back. So enjoy guys, follow along, let's get started. All right, so just a little bit of a warm up here. Trying to get everything sort of moving through my back. So the first thing that I did there was almost like a bit of just a pullover, or as Mike Israel like to call, like a lat prayer. I think that's what he calls them. And then I go into some form of ab movement. You actually wouldn't have seen this in my last session because I didn't bother recording it. But yeah, basically what I'm gonna do an RDL today, and I'm gonna do a bent over row. So both of those movements are pretty challenging for the spine to stabilize those positions. So it makes sense to mobilize the spine before we do them. So the ab crunch offers an environment in which we can do that safely. Spinal extension, spinal flexion. So, I mean, you could obviously do this with like a cat-cow pose as well, which I can show you in a second. But the ab crunch offers you also to train your abs. So it's a good opportunity to kind of knock out two birds with one stone. The reason I filmed them is because I haven't actually seen these before. It's the first time that I've kind of been doing them standing up. Okay, so For people that have maybe been following me for a while, you've probably seen me do most of my ab stuff in a crunch position like this and with a rope. So there's no harm in doing that. I've just recently found that actually just staying stood up and allowing my hips to remain a little bit more fixed, or it allows my hips to be a little bit more fixed, and then I can just keep them back and do the movement in itself, which is extending the spine and flexing the spine. So for maybe people that struggle to keep your hip fixed when you're on the floor, or you struggle to connect with your abs, perhaps try this variation and see how you get along. A good cue in my mind as well for those that struggle to develop their abs or connect with them is definitely spend a good amount of time like in the short positions of ab movements. Actually learn to contract your abs, feel them shorten, feel them contract, rather than just moving through space and kind of hoping for the best. So yeah, don't go too heavy here. Focus on just setting an amount of load that you can feel and connect with your abs, and then steadily progress that over the course of time. It's not a movement where you want to be trying to stack out the machine. And the often missed, well, there's two kind of missing points when people are training abs. Number one is you don't extend the spine enough, so you don't actually get into this position up here where your spine is extended. And number two, you don't actually flex your spine, so there's no flexion element. So people just end up just like pivoting sort of up and down on the hips. So make sure we're getting that flexion. Yeah, I can demonstrate it with my fat hands, and then we're getting some degree of flexion. So even in a gym where I am surrounded by kit, it is completely fine to have the same exercises in 2 rotations. Not a problem at all. If anything, you could have them in different orders. You could use different rep ranges if you're struggling to progress. But especially in a diet, just pick the higher quality movements, the ones that you connect with the best, the ones that you really get the most out of. For me, the Nautilus pull down is goated. It is one of the best movements, in my opinion, to train the lats in a overhead or vertical plane. So I don't change it session to session. I have it in both, and I have the same rep ranges because I connect with those rep ranges the best. So in an off season, I might opt a little bit more towards having more variation because my progression scheme will be that much greater, like more opportunity to actually move forwards. Or I might undulate my rep ranges, or part 1 in the front, 1 at the back end of the session. But ultimately find movements that just work well for you, and that's why you don't need a crazy gym to make progress. Yes, maybe a few select pieces would be amazing, but you don't need a crazy gym. You just need movements that you connect well with and you've got a lot of skill with, and ride them out for as long as you possibly can. Two sets here. One important point that I actually didn't cover when I was filming this session last time is you're never going to completely avoid crossover in terms of one session to another. I talk a lot about trying to piece your sessions together as best as possible so one session doesn't interfere with another. But for example, yesterday I trained push. When you train push, how do you stabilize and lock in with a lot of your presses? You use your lats, right? So my lats are a little bit sore from push. Not enough to detract away from pull, but I can feel it when I start to warm up. I'm like, oh, back's a little bit sore. That's not necessarily a sign that I can't train effectively today. And it never has been, because they always come in with the same level of a little bit of soreness. Obviously, you want to allow muscles really at least a 48-hour window between sessions, and that depends on the large to small muscle groups. So systemically demanding muscle groups like legs, you're going to need a little bit longer. Smaller like arms, maybe a little bit less. But ultimately, like, you're never going to completely negate crossover. So don't stress about that. Don't say, oh, I'm a little bit sore. See how you perform. See how you perform across a long span of time, and then make your decisions. Yes. 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 Hey. So, 2 sets here, and for the majority of my off season, besides some small phases where I tried to do 3 sets on this piece, most of the time it's 2. And that's because 2 was enough to elicit progression and growth. And I got asked in a client check-in a couple of weeks back saying, do I believe in volume? Like, do I believe in volume? And I gave this client the answer of this analogy that I've used once before about playing darts, right? So a professional darts player has, let's say, 3 darts. They aim those 3 darts and they get a score. I take 6 darts, and it's unlikely that with those 6 darts I'm going to match their 3. That's because they're very, very skilled and they're very accurate. So in the gym, think about being the 3-dart professional player. Get as close to being as accurate and as intense, more importantly intense and accuracy. Intensity and accuracy go together. And I'd argue that you've got to learn to be intense before you can learn to be accurate. Some will argue differently. And focus on making the most of every dart that you have. So I've got 2 darts here. I want to throw them as pinpoint accurate as possible with high intensity. And then that's all I need. Throwing another one is just not going to bring anything to the table. In some cases, when your recovery facilitates it, perhaps you can throw another dart or have another set. But of course, volume is something I believe in, because volume will drive growth, but only if that volume is recoverable and progressible. Bottom line. Been adding some more tracks to my top set playlist. And if you fancy a ride through about every single genre in music, search on Spotify AJ's Top Sets, and you'll experience going from Meek Mill to Taylor Swift to 50 Cent to Giggs to Antonio Pinto. Yeah, you'll cry, you'll feel like a gangster, and you'll have rock in the mix too. So I mean, what more can you ask for? Something that's so important on RDLs that's massively overlooked is just your vocal point. So where you look. Like, I get, again, a lot of form clips, see a lot of RDLs on a daily basis, and the amount of times I see people just look in different places. I mean, I'm not going to call anyone out, but I have a few clients that will go down and look like left or right, as if they're trying to watch as where the bar is touching the floor or not. And it's so hard to break that habit. And at the bottom position of an RDL, really, you want to try and have your head position or your cervical spine in line with your thoracic. So that's gonna look a little bit more like this. If it's like this, it's not like your neck's gonna explode. Your spine's very resilient. But I just think in terms of protecting like your traps, tweaking your neck, it makes sense to have a neutral head position. And vocal point helps you keep focused. If you're looking like left, right, up, down, you're not focused. Have a vocal point, look at somewhere on the floor, even mark it with chalk. You know, draw a smiley face there if it makes you happy. But have one point which you look at, don't look anywhere else. So warm-ups today will be pretty much just like you saw in the other video, but I'll talk you through it. So bar for like 6-ish, 60 for like 8 to 10, and then 100, 4, 5, 140, 3, 160, 2, 180, 1, and then up to 190. So my goal at the moment is to maintain anywhere between 180 and 190, depending on how my warm-ups feel on the day. You know, often even now, like Loz will sometimes ask me, what load should I go for today? And I'm like, it's not something you can always predict. Like, the more you train, the more you realize that it's not foolish, but it's a bit thinking ahead of yourself when you just plan out all of your loads. Because if you do that, you're not listening to your body anymore. You've got to be like strong-minded enough to think, I'm going to give this my maximum effort, but at the same time, I'm going to see how my body feels in the warm-ups. So you have to listen to that. If your body doesn't feel good on the warm-ups, taking a slightly lighter set is just a better option for longevity. But most of the time, your body's going to feel good. It should do, if you've managed everything else well. Beautiful. Nice. Oh, okay. Let's get the job done. Let's get the job done. Let's get the job done. Control, power, stable. Stable. Ah, come on, let's fucking go. Stable, strong. Hup. Yes! Yes! Oh, sorry, Alex. Alex wanted the angry energy today.
Good. That's it.
Yes!
Genau. That was very nice. What was the middle finger at me for? What have I done?
I'm happy with that, really happy with that. One of those weird ones, and I absolutely didn't want to talk about it at the start of the session because it would have thrown my head off, but I must have slept funny last night because I woke up and my hip just felt, wrong. It didn't feel good. You get these kind of things as you come down, you get leaner, you just get random little things that just don't feel 100%, and it's partially because I really don't have that much body fat on my hip and my lower back anymore. So if I sleep a bit funny, it just feels really messed up. So I was like, that's annoying. But I chose to just warm up and see how it felt. Like if it didn't feel safe, I wouldn't have done a set today. I would have actually left the RDL. But I didn't say anything at the start because for me, that I didn't even tell Loz. It ruins my psyche. It ruins my psyche. It's the same thing with like being hungry in a prep. I don't really ever say that I'm hungry because it ruins my psyche. If I'm not hungry, I'm not hungry. If I'm hungry, I'm hungry. If I'm hurt, I'm hurt. You know, so for me, I've always said to you guys as well, a lot of the emotions that we provoke in a prep or we provoke in an off season are literally a choice. So I decided today to put it behind me, see how it felt, and here we are. Good set, good day. Hamstrings are absolutely smoked from that as well. Kept them a little bit more continuous than the last session, and that really smokes them. All right, so next up, rows, of which I am going to still do the same way that I did in the vlog session, where they're not pendlays, they'll be just regular rows. I talked about this platform and how bouncy it is, so I'm just gonna do them as regular rows today. They felt really nice last time, so I'll do a very similar set there. That's all I really have to say. Obviously, one set of RDL is all that I need at the moment. To be honest, I've never really often done that more than one set of a hinge. I think if you want to do multiple sets and you don't want to be completely trashed, especially on a split like this, you're either going to have to leave like a couple of reps in the tank of the first set and accumulate your volume via 2 slightly further away from failure sets, which is a viable option, especially if you're struggling to make progress with that one set. More volume might be a greater stimulus, but you'll have to train further away from failure. I like taking my hinges to the point where I know I haven't got another safe rep. So if I went for another in that particular set, as much as it might look like it's moving safely or moving quickly, my back would round to the point where it's just not a safe rep. Especially right now in a prep, it's just not worth the risk. All right, actually I have a comment section question. So, what color is this? I don't know whether the complexion of the video might make it out to be a slightly different color, but comment below what color this is, and then my favorite, I'll call it that color on the site. I know when I purchased it what color it is, but I don't quite agree. I think it's a bit of a boring name. I won't tell you what it is, but you can comment below what color you'd like this to be called, and that'll be the official name. Pride possession if you win that, pride possession. Okie dokie. Yep. Out of all the movements in this whole session, those two are the ones where I feel my entire back just completely lit up. yes, you know, I like the connection on the single arm pull down, and I like getting blood in the lower lats, but nothing matches these, just nothing beats them for me. Again, don't take what I say and apply it one-to-one with yourself, because it might not be the perfect match. But this has always been part of my like bread and butter, is barbell movements. Even so much so, like my leg sessions used to be just barbell back squats and barbell RDLs. You know, I was in a gym which didn't even have a hack squat for the first like 5-6 years of my training career. So master the barbell if you can, because I guarantee you, if you spend a good 5-6 years of your training career mastering the barbell, you're gonna have great cross transfer into everything else you do. I think you'll end up with also quite a decent amount of initial tissue. And I've seen that in a lot of young athletes as well. Some maybe not so much, but 90% of the time, it's the case. So I go straight in on this. I talked through cues in the last video, but the reason why I go straight in is because if you're not warm from doing many warm-ups on an RDL, a pull down and a row, you're probably not worked hard enough on those things. Of course, if you're doing a newer movement, coming in and kind of like patterning the exercise would be smart, but I do this once every 5 days, and I've been doing it for 2 years. I know how to set myself up, so I just hop on and go. There's therefore no wasted energy, straight in. And the stack actually feels really light in comparison to having like 190 or like 120 on my hands in the barbell. So don't be afraid just to go straight in. Be safe, yes, but don't be afraid to go into your later exercises. You'll save your videographer's time as well. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So 2 sets done. They're both, well, the second was a little higher. One in the sort of 8 to 10 rep range, one 10 to 12. Again, cues with that, you need to think about just making sure that the start of the movement is upper arm down. Even if your scap kind of retracts a bit in the short, I'm not too fussed about that, especially if you still feel like you're on your lat. If you really struggle with connecting with your lat, then probably just go a bit lighter, push your hips back a bit more, and then really focus on like driving down the whole way and not really retracting too much. But for me, I just get strong connections with my lats on pretty much most things, even with looser form. So find your form. Doesn't have to be my form. Find your form that works for you. that you get decent connections and good progressions. 2, 1. Yep. Okay. Beautiful. So, as you can see, a clear difference between that horizontal movement and this. This one obviously is going to be a lot more focused on a slightly wider elbow path and much more movement of the scapula. So we're allowing shoulder blades to come forwards, big stretch, and then driving the elbows back just beyond the midline of the torso. Because it's so deep in the session, and I've already done a row, like barbell, I load it pretty much all on the top peg with a little bit in the middle peg. So that means that it's the heaviest in the stretch, and then it drops off as we're trying to get up here, which is where we're weaker. So we're weaker there naturally, but also we're weaker because of the distance this is into the session. What's your clothing brand?
Oh, World for Lifters.
World for Lifters. All right, so he's kindly given me a push-up on this, so we'll kindly shout out his brand.
I appreciate it.
I'll put a link below to World for Lifters. 3, 2, 1. Yep. Okay, my butt. Hey! Hey! Oh, yes. Woo. I like to have that deep stretch at the end. It's such a stable position in which you may as well make the most out of just getting a really nasty stretch. That's one more back movement left with the prime pull down, and then we'll go on to some rear delts and buys. So I don't overly worry about getting them like super retracted or short, because by this point in the session I've done so much that actually fully getting a contraction is very, very difficult. So but I really emphasize the stretch. So really get high up here, shoulder elevated, scapula protracted. I said in my last video about how these are more like upper back, bit of rear delt, and also a lot of the upper divisions of the lats. So, but to get those, in my opinion, we really have to get that deep stretch overhead. So think about almost emulating like a wide grip pull up with these as you go into the stretch. All right, so on the menu for rear delts today is a single arm rear delt cable fly with a cuff. Last session I did the rear delt row. So setting these up is really a case of having the cable height really about head height, about top of your head height. Because I like for rear delts to have a line of pull that's kind of like slightly high to low as opposed to just like straight across the body. Personally, I just get a little bit of a better connection with that. I think it lines up with the rear delts a little bit better. And then the arm path into the contraction, you really want to think about driving out and slightly down. And then across the body as far as you can. Twist your body, rotate your body a little bit. And again, the reason for rolling up my strap, one, they're already in my hand, but two, it gives me something to grip and hold on to. And you might say, oh, well, just one, you just use a D handle and just do the whole movement with a D handle. It doesn't feel the same. Having the contact point like in the cuff and having this be the thing that attaches you to the cable is very, very different to having to hold something physically that can rotate and move around a lot. This just stays fixed. You don't even feel like it's there. So again, don't push aside the cuff work. Just give it a shot. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Some gyms don't even have cuffs, you know, so of course you can purchase your own, of which there are many different suppliers. I don't have any cuff sponsors, so I'm not asking for one either, by the way. I mean, I'm not like pledging myself to. Maybe we should make some MBW cuffs, to be honest. It can't be that hard. So yeah, maybe I should be more business minded on the cuffs that I use and brand myself to high heavens. Oh, okay. One bit of advice that I will give to anyone that's watching this, that's in their first prep, perhaps even in their 5th prep, is like audit the content that you watch and audit it early. That doesn't mean just watch my content, by the way. It means audit like the type of content. So if you find yourself, you know, you've gotten hungry and your food focus is increasing, stop going towards the food content. It's only gonna make things worse for you. You're only gonna start to collect this idea of like all the restaurants you're gonna visit after your prep and all the different foods you wanna try and start hoarding stuff. I promise you, you're making life way harder than it needs to be for yourself. So instead, focus on like consuming content maybe like this, like training content, motivational content for bodybuilding, and then invest that energy that you want to spend on something, you want to focus on something, into like learning something new, learning about a new topic, learning a new language, listening to podcasts with mentors or business owners that have developed amazing businesses. That's what I use the energy to go into now. And that's coming from someone who in his first prep fell asleep at night watching Man vs. Food. So I will hold my hands up and say that I went down that rabbit hole and it's not fun. My post-show of that year was horrendous, awful. So don't go down that hole. Ooh. All right, so 3 sets of a single arm preacher. On the other session, I do a dumbbell. On this session, I do a cable. Just a little bit of variance. It's only simply for the fact of variety. There's no special reason why. And cues for biceps is really just to make sure that, I mean, if you struggle with biceps, definitely try and keep your upper arm supported, especially on more shortened focus or mid to short range. Keep the upper arm on a pad, like lock it down. It's just gonna get so much more output through the bicep and worry less about what other body parts are doing. And then as you come into the stretch, like really focus on jamming that tricep down into the preacher pad or the bench. And then just think as from the bottom to the top, like you're simply just closing a gap between your fist and your bicep, whilst stacking your shoulder, elbow and wrist all in a straight line. And keep that dialed in. And that again is coming from someone that has had a hard time developing my arms. So again, they're definitely on the way up, and I will show that when we do comparison pictures to previous seasons and I step on stage later in the season. I really believe that the arms will be an upgraded body part. fuck me. Final bicep movement of the day. Same as last session, incline cable curl. Again, I just really like this movement for slightly more length and bicep work. And we'll just do 2 sets here today. So did 3 sets on the single arm preacher cable curl, 2 sets here, and then we'll finish with a stretch. So yeah, my bicep volume is 5 sets per pull session, and then 2 sets on my leg days right now. So I kind of split the work up so the quality remains high across the course of prep, rather than doing, let's say for example, 7 sets in 1 pull session. You know, the quality of the work would just drop off. Oh yes. So I included this in my vlog and I made it about as dull as possible to watch, with some sarcasm in between. So I'm going to give Alex a challenge. Alex, you've got a minute to make this as cinematic and intense as possible. Let's set Alex a challenge. All right, here we go. I don't know where he's gone. Oh, he's over there. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what comes of that. All right, guys. So that's us finished up for today. A very, very good session. Very happy with how training is going right now at 17 weeks out. And the goal, of course, is to keep it exactly that way for as long as I possibly can. The rate of loss now will drastically slow. And I'm actually going to give you guys a question. So this is funny because you've got no physique updates, so you don't have a clue how I look. So this is for OG followers that know how I looked in previous preps. So the person who guesses my stage weight this year to the closest number, I'll give a prize. It's gonna be a good prize, it's not gonna be a bad one. I'll think about what it is. But comment below, guess what weight I'm going to be on stage. You can guess in kilos or pounds, it doesn't matter, whatever works for you. For reference, for fair judging, I'll allow newer followers to catch up. 2021, I was 152 pounds on show day. 2020, I was 159 pounds on show day. Drastically different condition. 2021, I was in shape for the amount of muscle that I had. 2020, I wasn't quite there. So I'm 166 pounds at the moment, matched 2020's condition. What do you think? Give it a guess. I'll revisit this video when my prep is complete. All right, guys, so yeah, that's us for today. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for the support. I won't ask you to comment below MBW because you're all going to be maybe guessing the stage weight anyway. And I wish you a fantastic day, evening, morning, whenever you watch this. And we'll catch up soon. Cheers, guys.